Imagine this. It is 7:15 on a Wednesday morning, and your alarm just went off. Before you even pull the covers back, your thumb automatically opens Instagram, operating on pure muscle memory. You see that one friend from college just bought their first house, another got promoted, and someone else is posting glowing engagement photos from a vacation in Europe. You keep scrolling, blinking away the sleep, and suddenly, without saying it out loud, a single, heavy thought appears in your mind. What am I doing with my life? But let me ask you something, before we go any further. If you had left your phone on the nightstand this morning and just looked out the window, would you still feel like you were falling behind? Probably not. Millions of us wake up with this exact heavy feeling sitting in our chests every single day. We call it a quarter-life crisis, milestone anxiety, or just plain burnout. But what if those are just symptoms of a much deeper illusion? What if the real problem is that your brain is running a highly sophisticated con on you? Today, we are going to look at why you feel like you are losing a race that was never yours to begin with, and how to finally step off the track. Let's look at a guy named Ethan. He is 31 years old. He has a decent job, pays his bills on time, and goes to the gym a few days a week. From the outside, his life is perfectly fine, even good. Yet, as he sits on the edge of his bed this morning, looking at a former roommate's new kitchen on his feed, he feels a crushing sense of inadequacy. He feels like everyone else is sprinting forward while he is standing completely still on a moving walkway. But Ethan isn't actually racing against other people. He is racing against an evolutionary ghost. Psychologists call this social comparison theory. Thousands of years ago, our brains evolved to constantly compare our social status to the rest of the tribe. Belonging to the group meant physical survival, and falling behind meant you were left in the wilderness alone to die. Your brain has not updated its software since the Pleistocene epoch. So today, that ancient survival instinct compares your messy, ordinary Tuesday morning to someone else's heavily filtered peak life moment. You are not actually comparing your life to theirs. You are comparing your daily reality to their marketing campaign. Have you ever noticed how 5 minutes on social media can somehow completely erase 5 years of your own personal growth? It triggers a very real cortisol spike in your nervous system, putting you in a state of chronic, low-grade panic. Later that morning, Ethan sits at his office desk, staring at a glowing spreadsheet, wondering where he went wrong. For decades, Americans were handed a very specific, rigid life script. You graduate at 22, get a stable corporate job, marry by 25, buy a house with a yard by 27, and have kids by 30. That timeline made perfect economic sense about 40 years ago. But trying to navigate modern life with that script is like trying to find your way around modern New York City using a paper map from 1985. You are going to get desperately lost, and you are going to think it is entirely your own fault. According to the American Psychological Association, financial and housing stress for young adults is at a historical high. The world has fundamentally shifted beneath our feet. Careers are no longer straight corporate ladders. They are unpredictable rivers that constantly change direction. Yet, we still ruthlessly judge our self-worth using a map that no longer reflects the territory we live in. The hardest prison you will ever live in isn't failure. It is the deeply held belief that everyone else is somehow ahead of you on a path that doesn't even exist anymore. So what actually happens when you manage to reach one of those outdated milestones? Let's say it is lunchtime, and Ethan is scrolling through Zillow or LinkedIn while eating a sandwich, desperately chasing the next big win. He thinks, I will finally be happy and secure when I make 6 figures, or when I buy that house. In psychology, this is known as the Arrival Fallacy. We have this deeply ingrained cognitive bias that true happiness is a destination located somewhere in the future. We believe that once we cross a specific finish line, our lives will permanently transform into a state of bliss. But neuroscientists have mapped out a cruel trick our brains play on us, specifically involving the neurotransmitter dopamine. Your brain does not actually release a massive sustained wave of dopamine because you have arrived at your goal. It releases dopamine because you are in the pursuit of something. It is driven by a mechanism called reward prediction error. Once you cross the finish line, the chemical excitement fades almost instantly, leaving a strange, quiet emptiness behind. This leads to hedonic adaptation, where you quickly get used to your new reality, and the thrill disappears. Then, your brain quietly creates a new destination, moving the goalposts just out of reach once again. The finish line keeps moving, not because you are failing, but because that is exactly how the human brain is wired to keep you alive and striving. But let me ask you a strange question. What if the finish line was never actually supposed to make you happy? What if its only evolutionary purpose was simply to keep you running? By 5:30 p.m., Ethan is driving home in heavy traffic, listening to a podcast about optimizing his morning routine. Modern American hustle culture tells us that if we aren't constantly productive, we are wasting our brief existence. We are told to wake up earlier, build a side hustle, and turn our quiet hobbies into profitable, scalable brands. Slowly, without you even noticing, your core identity becomes entirely chained to your productivity. Your intrinsic human value gets terribly confused with your paycheck. When this happens, burnout starts dressing up as ambition. Chronic exhaustion starts feeling like a normal Tuesday, and resting starts feeling like a moral failure. Your cortisol levels stay chronically elevated, keeping your body in a perpetual state of fight or flight, slowly eroding your mental and physical health. When was the last time you sat on your couch and just rested, without feeling a heavy pit of guilt in your stomach? Now it is night. Ethan is back in his apartment, lying in the dark, the blue light of his phone illuminating his tired face as the cycle repeats. Because of something called the negativity bias, his brain ignores the 3 good things that happened today and hyper-focuses on what he lacks. He looks at the glowing screen and sees everyone else winning, but he doesn't see their crippling credit card debt, their silent anxiety, or their failing relationships. Comparison doesn't just steal your joy, it completely hijacks your perspective of reality, trapping a part of your brain called the default mode network in an endless loop of self-criticism. We suffer so much more in our imagination than we ever do in reality. So, how do we actually escape this invisible, exhausting race? First, you have to throw away the 1985 map and build your own compass. You have to ask yourself a radically honest question. If absolutely nobody could judge you, and you couldn't post a single picture of it online, what kind of life would you actually want? Maybe your authentic version of success isn't a luxury apartment in Manhattan or a C-suite executive title. Maybe it is having the energy to cook dinner with your family every single night. Maybe it is living in a quiet town where you can actually breathe, surrounded by peace instead of prestige. There is no wrong answer, but it has to be your answer. Success becomes infinitely lighter the exact moment you decide to make it yours. Second, you have to completely change how you measure your progress. Research from Stanford University on habit formation shows that we severely underestimate the compounding power of micro-wins. Your life is not built by cinematic giant milestones. It is built by entirely ordinary Tuesdays. Instead of punishing yourself by saying you still don't own a house, try noticing that you drank enough water today. Acknowledge that you read 10 pages of a book, or that you responded to a highly stressful email with grace and patience. Small, quiet victories, repeated over time, are exactly what build resilient, extraordinary lives. You have to actively train your brain to look for the daily evidence that you are growing. Third, you must ruthlessly curate your digital environment. Every single account you follow is silently teaching your brain what a successful life is supposed to look like. This creates an attentional bias, skewing what you believe is normal. If a piece of content consistently makes you feel inadequate or anxious, you need to unfollow it immediately. It doesn't matter if it is a famous influencer or a friend from high school. Protect your attention like it is your most valuable asset, because it is. Finally, remember that nature never rushes, yet absolutely everything gets accomplished. Vera Wang did not design her first fashion collection until she was 40 years old. Samuel L. Jackson became a household name in his late 40s. Julia Child published her first cookbook at 50. Their success wasn't late, and they weren't falling behind. It happened exactly when the seasons of their unique lives prepared them for it. Let's look at Ethan one last time, 6 months later. He still lives in the exact same apartment. His salary hasn't doubled, and he still drives the exact same aging car. From the outside, his life looks completely identical. But one profound thing has changed. He stopped measuring his daily progress against everyone else's highlight reels and outdated social milestones. Instead of waking up and asking, "Why am I so far behind?" he started asking, "Am I slowly becoming the person I actually want to be?" Ironically, that was the exact moment he finally stopped feeling stuck. Nothing changed around him, but absolutely everything changed within him. He stepped off the treadmill of comparison and finally started walking his own path. Maybe today you don't have everything you have ever dreamed about, but maybe, just maybe, you are so much closer than you think. A sunflower does not bloom on the exact same day as an oak tree, and absolutely no one looks at the mighty oak tree and calls it a failure simply because it takes a little longer to grow tall and strong. Life is not a sprint, and it is definitely not a race against the people around you. It is a deeply personal river, carving its own unique, beautiful path toward the ocean. So take a deep breath. You are not behind. You are simply living a story that doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Before you leave, I want you to share one small victory from this week in the comments below. It doesn't need to be a massive achievement, just one single step forward that you are proud of. Let's celebrate the ordinary days together. And if this video helped you feel a little lighter today, please subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who might really need this reminder right now. Time equals so.